muscles, and they're muscles that virtually everyone has at least heard of. One is your trapezius muscle, and the other is your latissimus dorsi muscle, otherwise known as our traps and our lats. So you're allowed to call the trapezius muscle the traps. You're allowed to call the latissimus dorsi muscle the lats. Lord knows if they ask these questions, that's what I'm going to have on my answer sheet. Your traps are a beautiful diamond-shaped muscle that we see along the back, running from the base of the skull to the shoulder blade and then down to the base of the thoracic spine. So we see this muscle starting in the base of the skull, out to the shoulder blade, and down to the base of the thoracic spine. And it is number 1 on pygmy guy. Muscle number 1.
But you said base of spine, shoulder blade.
Yeah, this muscle runs from the base of the skull to the shoulder blade, down to the base of the thoracic spine, and all up in between. It actually makes a beautiful diamond-shaped muscle. If you ever get a chance to do gross anatomy, which I highly recommend, the first muscle they make you find is the traps. So the person's up on the table, you cut the skin on the back, as you peel the skin away, the first muscle you see is this muscle, your traps. How do we strengthen the traps in the gym? It'll tell us what the action is. So what exercise are you going to use to strengthen your traps? You're going to do some sort of motion where you start here and you end here. So a rowing motion, right? If you want to work the upper traps, you're going to come up high. Lower traps, you're going to have to come low. Middle traps, you're going to come straight back. We call this action of this motion, it's called retraction. R-E-T-R-A-C-T-I-O-N, retraction. So this muscle retracts our scapula. It ultimately moves the shoulder blade. And again, it's number 1 on pygmy guy. In the low back, we have a muscle called our latissimus dorsi muscle. It's this muscle, this broad muscle that we see here. And again, this is a muscle you're more than welcome to call the lats, L-A-T-S. I got it. What machine do you use to strengthen your latissimus dorsi muscle? It's literally called the lat machine, or a lat pull-down machine. It's the machine where you're sitting, there's a bar, you grab the sides and you bring the bar down to you. All right, that's called the lat pull-down. It works the latissimus dorsi. So if I start here and I end here, what motion have I done? I start here and I end here.
Adduction.
I've adducted my shoulder. This is a shoulder adductor. Everybody thinks of it as a low back muscle. Technically it is because it's there, but it does nothing for our low back. It doesn't move our low back whatsoever. It moves our shoulder. It's really using the low back as more of an anchor. This muscle is also on pygmy guy. It would be muscle number 2. This muscle right here.
Is that like the back fat?
Here? That's not back fat, no. The latissimus dorsi, or the lat muscle, has a fan-shaped tendon. We think of a tendon as being like a straight line, you know, a sleeve of tendon. The lat dorsi has this thin, fanned-out tendon to attach it to the low back. And that's what you're seeing here, as well as on the model. No, that's just good old-fashioned steak right there. Everybody kosher with these 2 muscles. Which brings us to our first muscle group. These are our abs. So the abdominal muscles, come on your... For the abs, they are going to use this model. All right, because this model has all 4 abs, as well as the 5th piece of tissue, which are responsible for. Everything is on this model. They use it every semester. When we think about our abdominal muscles, there are 4 muscles that comprise the abdominal muscles, 3 of which all of you should have heard of. Everyone should have heard of rectus abdominis. Everybody should have heard of your obliques, both external and internal obliques. All 4 muscles attach in the front, or in the anterior part of our abdominal cavity, to a long tendon, which runs from the base of our rib cage all the way down to the pubic symphysis. And this long tendon is called the linea alba. The linea alba is not a muscle, it is a long tendon, which is at the end of each of my 4 fingertips. That line that runs down vertically, runs down the front of our abdominal cavity, separating our abs into a left and a right. It has a number, it's number 79. And all 4 of the muscles we're about to talk to attach to this linea alba. So we use the linea alba as an attachment site for all the muscles of the abs. The first of the ab muscles is our 6-pack muscle, right? Who here has a 6-pack? All of us do. Just what we have on top of it that mucks things up. We all have a 6-pack. Some of us are cushioning it, that's all. Right? I've been cushioning mine for years. It's all right. The 6-pack muscle is called our rectus abdominis muscle, which are these muscles that we see here. These are the rectus abdominis muscles. Number 78 and number 80 on the models represent the rectus abdominis muscle very, very well. If you want to strengthen your rectus abdominis muscle, what action do you do in the gym? You do a sit-up, right? But you can't say sit-up on the test. You got to tell me the motion. So what motion is a sit-up? If I start here and I end here, what have I done?
Is it that? Extension or no?
This is extension.
Flexion.
Flexion. What am I flexing?
Rectus abdominis.
That's a muscle. You can't flex a muscle. I'm flexing my spine. This muscle flexes the spine. Yeah, you got to think skeleton when you think about the action is flexion, and then what part of the spine are we moving? We're moving what part of the skeleton are we moving? We're moving the spine. Specifically, we're flexing the spine. On either side of the rectus abdominis are our oblique muscles. And the oblique muscles are great in that they both perform the same action. So what you really need to figure out is which one is which. The superficial of our of our obliques is the external oblique. We see it here, and we see it partially here, although it's cut. External obliques. If you want to look at your model, the external oblique is number 77. It's on the right-hand side of Pygmy Guy's model. It's this muscle over here. If we remove external oblique, there's a muscle underneath it. That's called your internal oblique, which is muscle number 76 on the model. The big difference between the two, because on the model you can't tell really as easily what's superficial and what's deep, is know the way the fibers are running. If the fibers are running from the rib cage to the linea alba, it has to be the external oblique. From the rib cage to the linea alba, it has to be the external obliques. On the contrary, if the fibers are running from the pelvis up to the linea alba, it has to be the internal obliques. Because they ask one or the other frequently enough. How do you work your obliques? What activity do you do in the gym to work your obliques? Lunge works it a little bit, but it doesn't show off its, what?
Crunches?
Well, that's rectus abdominis. That's rectus abdominis. Now we're talking. If I take my right elbow and I go to my left knee, or my left elbow and go to my right knee, that's your obliques. So what is this motion? If I start here and I end here, what have I done? I flexed and rotate. It flexes and rotates the spine. So both obliques flex and rotate the spine. Which leaves us with our last of our abdominal muscles, which we can see on this model. It's the one that's deepest. It's in this little inset. You can see this muscle right here. You can also see this muscle. If I strip away the external obliques and the rectus abdominis, we're left with the deepest muscle of all of our abdominal muscles. This is called our transverse abdominis. You see it here. You want to see it on your model. Transverse abdominis, you got to flip this bad boy around, and it's number 84. Underneath this muscle are the contents of your abdominal cavity. So just right below this muscle is small intestine and large intestine all day long. This muscle, the transverse abdominis, does not have an action. In that when we contract this muscle, no motion occurs. It does have a function though. This muscle's function is to work as a girdle. It keeps our insides inside and the outsides outside. When this muscle tears and part of your small intestine protrudes through that tear, you have a what? That's a hernia. So this muscle, when it tears, part of the contents in your abdominal cavity will literally protrude through that hole. We call that a hernia. So this muscle works as a girdle. It basically separates the abdominal cavity from the rest of the muscular system.
Can we write that on the test too?
Like if they say, what's its action?
Yeah.
My answer sheet will say girdle.
Okay.
That's what my answer sheet will say. But if you say something to the effect of, keeps the inside inside and the outside, I got you.
Okay.
But I'll have the word girdle, because you only get a line this long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of y'all have some ridiculously large handwriting. I'm surprised you can get girdle on that line, let alone anything else. All right? So I got a good story about a hernia. I live in Kingwood, and I work in Kingwood. And Kingwood is basically the Woodlands' bitch, right? We do. We aspire to be the Woodlands, although we'll never be the Woodlands. We don't have the Woodlands' money. We never will have the Woodlands' money. We're fake rich. The Woodlands is rich, right? And so as a result, we have a lot of people in Kingwood that like to keep up with the Joneses, which is a problem if you don't have the money to do so, which unfortunately there's plenty of people in Kingwood that don't. So I have this one lady that comes in to see me, and she and her husband are fine. She's in her, at the time, she was probably in her late 40s. She has 5 kids. She works out 13 times a week. This is a woman who takes immaculate care of herself, and she's in impeccable shape, right? Kudos to her for that. She comes in one day and she lifts up her shirt and she's got this big knob right here. It's like a big knob sticking out in her skin. She goes, "What is this? It hurts." And I kind of poke her. I'm like, "That's a hernia." And I explained to her that what happened is she must have torn the ab muscle because she does like 8,000 sit-ups a day. And I said, you tore that transverse muscle, and now part of your intestines is protruding out of that muscle. She goes, "Oh, that doesn't sound good." I said, "No, it's not ideal. You got to get it to get pushed back into place." She goes, "Well, what should I do?" I said, "Go to a surgeon. Here's the name of a guy that I really like." I said, "He'll put it back in there, sew you up, and you'll be good to go." She goes, "Will that give me a scar?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, I don't want to have a scar." Well, nobody wants a scar, but the alternative is this. She goes, "But I like to wear bikinis." I'm like, "You can still wear bikinis." She goes, "But it'll be a scar." I'm like, when you're walking on the beach with your 5 kids, no one's looking at your bikini. They're looking at your 5 kids. I said, just get the damn thing fixed. This is the kind of crap we have to contend with in Kingwood. She doesn't like this answer. She goes away. She comes back like 2 months later. It's worse. She's like, now I can't exercise anymore. I'm like, oh, you should have gotten it fixed. What's wrong with you? I said, go to this guy, he'll fix it. But I don't want a scar. I'm like, I'm not having this argument with you again. This is not going to get better on its own. You gotta have someone push that intestine back in, sew the muscle up, and get the hell out of Dodge. Otherwise, this is just gonna get worse, and now you're gonna risk having to go into the hospital with sepsis and all kinds of problems. I said, this can cause some serious issues. I pull her husband aside. I'm like, you've got to get this under control, dude. What the hell's wrong with you guys? She goes away. She comes back 6 months later, maybe 9 months later. It's fixed.
Oh my God.
In that time, she got it fixed. She lifts up her shirt. She goes, look, no scar.
Oh my God.
I'm like, all right. How'd you do that? How did she get the muscle fixed without having a scar on her abs?
But she did surgery, right?
She had surgery. Surgery was involved. Yes.
She tattooed that.
Back.
It's a great guess. She went from somewhere else, not the back. She went from here. She found a plastic surgeon somewhere in, yeah. You're not kidding. You are not kidding. She found a plastic surgeon who went in through the pubic area, then went up, telescoped up, fixed it from the inside. So now she has a scar, but it's here, right, where the bathing suit still covers. She spent $6,500 to get it done. Her insurance would have paid for the other one, in total, right? But ultimately, she got it fixed. So I said, oh, well, if you got it fixed, I don't care how you spend your money, dumbass. But you will deal with those people. You will deal with people who you will give them the best possible advice, and they will look at you like you're stupid. There comes a point where you just gotta, it's not my problem anymore. I've said my piece. All right, so make sure you label these muscles. Make sure you label the abs, lats, and traps. This clock is about 5 minutes too fast, so we